On July 6, 2017, Mark, Robin, Dave, and Joanne stepped aboard one of the most famous trains in America, the historic Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. Their adventure began at the historic depot in Durango, Colorado, where the sights, sounds, and smell of a working steam railroad instantly transported them back more than a century. As coal smoke drifted into the mountain air and the locomotive released a blast of steam, they prepared to follow the same route once traveled by miners, settlers, and adventurers during Colorado's great mining boom. The railroad itself dated back to 1881, when it was constructed by the Denver and Rio Grande Railway. Built under the leadership of railroad pioneer William Jackson Palmer, the line originally served a practical purpose, hauling silver and gold ore from the remote San Juan Mountains to markets farther south. What began as an industrial lifeline eventually became one of the most scenic heritage railroads in the world. As the train slowly departed Durango, the modern city quickly faded behind them. The locomotive settled into its rhythmic cadence while the narrow gauge rails guided the train northward toward the mountains. Unlike standard railroads, the tracks beneath them measured only 3 feet apart. This narrow gauge design allowed engineers to build through steep mountain terrain, negotiate tight curves, and reach places that would have been nearly impossible for conventional railroads. Soon, the train entered the valley of the Animas River. The river's name originated from the Spanish phrase Rio de las Animas, often translated as River of Souls. For much of the journey, the railroad closely followed the river as it wound through deep canyons and rugged wilderness. The scenery became increasingly dramatic with every mile. Towering cliffs rose above the train, while rushing waters churned below. Pine-covered mountainsides stretched into the distance, and for long portions of the trip, there were no roads, no towns, and no signs of modern civilization. It was easy to imagine what the region looked like in the late 19th century, when railroad crews first ventured into these remote mountains. Building the railroad had been a remarkable engineering achievement. Workers used little more than hand tools, black powder explosives, mules, and determination to carve a route through some of the most difficult terrain in the Rocky Mountains. One of the most famous sections of the journey arrived at the High Line. Here, the railroad clung to a narrow shelf cut directly into the canyon wall. Hundreds of feet below, the Animas River rushed through the canyon floor. The train appeared to float along the mountainside as breathtaking views opened in every direction. For Mark, Robin, Dave, and Joanne, this was undoubtedly one of the highlights of the trip. The combination of steep cliffs, dramatic mountain vistas, and the authentic steam locomotive created an experience that felt almost unchanged from another era. As the train continued northward, it passed through the Rockwood area, once an important stop where steam locomotives replenished their water supplies. Steam engines required enormous amounts of water and coal, and operating them in mountain terrain demanded careful planning from the train crews. Surrounding the railroad was the vast wilderness of the San Juan Mountains. The San Juan National Forest encompassed nearly 2 million acres of rugged terrain, alpine forests, and soaring peaks. Along the route, passengers occasionally spotted wildlife, including mule deer, elk, bald eagles, and black bears. With each passing mile, the train climbed higher into the mountains. The elevation steadily increased as forests gave way to increasingly rugged alpine landscapes. Snow-fed streams cascaded down rocky slopes, while distant peaks rose above the horizon. These mountains once contained some of the richest mineral deposits in the American West. During the late 1800s, prospectors flooded the region seeking fortunes in silver, gold, lead, and zinc. Mining camps rapidly evolved into thriving communities, and the railroad became the essential link connecting those isolated mountain towns with the outside world. Without the railroad, many of the mines, and perhaps even the town of Silverton itself, might never have survived. As the journey neared its conclusion, the train rounded a final series of curves and entered the broad alpine valley surrounding Silverton. Nestled at an elevation of over 9,300 feet and surrounded by majestic 13,000-foot peaks, Silverton appeared much as it had during the height of Colorado's mining era. Historic buildings lined the streets, and the mountains formed a spectacular backdrop to the town. When the locomotive finally rolled into Silverton, Mark, Robin, Dave, and Joanne had completed one of the most memorable rail journeys in North America. They had traveled 45 miles through deep canyons, crossed a landscape rich in mining history, and experienced a living piece of Colorado's past. More than 135 years after its construction, the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad continued to preserve the sights, sounds, and spirit of the American West. For the four travelers, it had been far more than a train ride. It had been a journey through history, through wilderness, and through some of the most spectacular mountain scenery anywhere in the Rocky Mountains. And as they stepped off the train in Silverton on that July afternoon, they carried with them memories of a Colorado experience that few travelers ever forget.